So it's not about what I say, it's about what you hear. It's not about what I point at, it's about what you see.
Welcome to the Honestly Adoption Podcast, the show that gives hope and insight from real voices on the foster and adoption journey. Pull up a chair. We're glad you could join us. Here are your hosts, Mike and Kristen Berry.
Friends, family, people far and wide, welcome to the Honestly Adoption Podcast. You have stopped by, and we are so happy that you guys have done that. We welcome you, especially if this is your first time checking out our show. Thanks for stopping by. We hope you guys get a lot out of it. My name is Mike Berry, and along with Kristen Berry, we are your co-hosts for this show. And on this show, we talk about all kinds of topics related to foster care, adoption, and our goal is to highlight all aspects of the triad as well as world issues, social justice issues, you name it. We talk about all of that on this show. This is season 21, episode 170, and Kristen and I are excited to introduce you guys to Simon Ben. Simon is an adoptee coaching adoptive parents, foster parents, and adoptees, and his goal is to help adoptees thrive. And you're going to learn more about this in the show. Simon breaks it all down for you, and it is absolutely extraordinary. It's an extraordinary interview, and Simon is an extraordinary person, extraordinary human being doing amazing work for adoptees, but also helping adoptive parents like me, like Kristen and I, become the best parents possible. And that is also a big driving force behind this show. Listen, I invite you guys to stop over to honestlyadoption.com/podcast, and you can learn more about what we do. Like I said, if you have just started listening to the show, get caught up on past episodes, subscribe to the show. You can subscribe through Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean. We're all over the place. Look us up, the Honestly Adoption Podcast. We would love for you guys to subscribe. Actually, that helps the show, and especially on Apple Podcasts, when you subscribe and when you leave a review, good or bad, be honest, tell us what you think. That just helps the show reach more people. It helps the show grow, and we would love for that to happen. This has just been an amazing journey thus far, and we feel like we're just getting started. I mean, we've been doing this for 6 years, but we feel like the best is yet to come. We are continuing to work towards that summit, whatever that is. But of course, we never stop growing, and you guys are a big part of that. We love this audience. You guys have been amazing, and we love interacting with you. We love bringing you high-value content every single week. Now listen, the interview with Simon is amazing. You're going to love him. Jump over to that site I just invited you to visit, and let's get on with this show, you guys. We're excited to introduce you to our special guest today. Well, we are so excited to welcome Simon Ben to the Honestly Adoption Podcast. Simon, welcome to you.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Kristen. And I have to say, quite honestly, because honesty is the best policy always, I'm delighted to be here. I love talking this stuff. So bring it on. It's going to be fun. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Oh, so good to have you. And you are, we were talking about this offline. You are 200 miles north of London, England.
That's right.
And this is the first time we've interviewed anybody from the UK. That's so cool.
Yeah.
It really is. I'm so excited about that.
I hope that you can understand my accent. I don't speak like a posh person or Dick Van Dyke on Mary Poppins, or a posh person from the southeast of London, or anybody from the BBC whatsoever. They have more resonant voices. I'm somewhat more northern,
yes,
a little less educated, clearly. So I hope
but not clearly to us.
You sound a billion times smarter than we do. I'm just saying it. I love we love your accent. Perfect.
Right.
you.
I think all of our listeners in the US, we just bumped our credibility up because you sound so much more respectable than we do. So I love your accent. It's going to work out great for us.
Respectable. Yes.
Yes.
Words that
Yeah.
an adjective that is never applied to me. But yes, I love it.
Well,
Love it.
we got to know you a little bit on the internet, as one does in 2021. Read a little bit about your website, and we're going to dig into that some more too. But before we get into the work that you're doing, tell us a little bit about yourself and your connection to adoption.
Yeah. So I'm Simon Ben. I live, as you say, 200 miles north of London. So I live 12 miles away from Old York rather than New York. And I live with my wife, Lynn. We have 2 Labradors, no big shakes. Everybody's got dogs, but we also have 2 pigs, 2 cooney pigs that live in a field around our house. So yeah, I'm 54. I was adopted at 5 weeks old. So yeah, just over 54 years ago. And I was adopted by my parents, Mike and Marjorie. I had a little sister called Penny, who was adopted a couple of years after me. She's not biologically related. She came from a different biological mother. And my adoption went well. I was told so young that I don't even remember not knowing. I don't ever remember not knowing that I was adopted. And my mum and dad told me. My mum told me the other day. Actually, it was before I was 2. So I knew about it before my sister came along, and they told me with the aid of a storybook about a couple that got married, fell in love, got married, and then adopted a child. So that's how they told me, which is a really sweet way to do it. So I had a happy upbringing, ups and downs like anybody else. A lot of bullying, actually. I suffered a lot of bullying, but that was nothing to do with being adopted. That was actually to do with being a bit posh, what we call posh, like I was talking, doing this. So I went to I lived in a more affluent part of town, and I went to a fee-paying school. And that was one of the reasons. I went to a scout camp, and I was really badly bullied. And one of the reasons that I was bullied was because I was this slightly posher kid, I think. Anyway, but there was all sorts of reasons as well, other reasons as well. So had some issues with that. I went into the family business, and that life was a bit trickier in the family business. It was like the financial roller coaster became an emotional roller coaster, as it does for a lot of people that run their own businesses. And success was pretty elusive for me. But when I got there, when we had a good year, and I made what I thought was I hit a big target, it was like a hollow victory. So I don't know if you've seen anybody being interviewed after they've won the Super Bowl. You just had the Super Bowl, didn't you, last weekend? Sorry. They've won a Super Bowl, or they've won a gold medal, or they've won a sportsperson, sportswoman. And they say it hasn't really sunk in yet. They're being interviewed and say it hasn't sunk in yet. For me, that's because their expectation of what the victory would do hasn't lived up to their expectations. And so it's like it becomes a hollow victory. So around that time, I found out that my teddy bear that I'd had from a kid was given to me by my birth mother. And my parents had never told me that. And I thought, when I first heard that, I thought, that's interesting. And there was no more reaction to that. And then a couple of months later, I was telling the story, and I had this massive explosion of anger about being unloved, and lots of profanities that I won't share with your family audience. And that set me off on a kind of like a learning journey. Where was I going to find happiness? Where does it come from? What's this all about? How can I stop worrying about business? How can I get this, tame this adoption trauma, I guess is one of the words that's used.
Yeah.
So I ended up learning some stuff. and then decided to sell my old business, and because I had to get out of it. It was just that the business model was wrong. I couldn't move it fast enough. I couldn't change it fast enough. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do? And I thought, well, why don't I share what I've learned? So I've done that in different forms, but I've never really brought my whole self to it, my adoption story to the work that I do. But since I've started doing that around November time, I just feel like I'm in my zone. We were talking about this before you started recording the podcast. You know, you guys have found your zone, and we were we were contrasting that with people that don't find their zone. So for me, this isn't work. This is just who I am, sharing my story. And I heard a great analogy for this, which is sending the elevator back down. So we've learned some stuff. It's helped us grow, and we send the elevator back down, and we send that down with love, not as some kind of strategy. I've seen this as a strategy in the States. I've seen this as wrapped up untruth, but where us three are coming from, it's about love and hope and something else beginning with H that I can't remember. Heart and hope. That's what it's about. You know, you've got hearts on the covers of some of your books. This is about love. You know, this is loving what we do. This is loving the kids, and it's helping the kids see their perfection underneath all the stuff that they've been through, because obviously adoption is clearly completely different these days, with all the stuff that's going on. Not people aren't, there's still the baby adoptions, but by far most of those kids that are adopted are far older than that.
Yeah. So
I should have paused for a breath at some point in that.
Oh, that's okay. No, we have a reputation on this
perfect.
show of every time people come on the show, we let them know, like, listen, we're here, we're interviewing you. Our audience wants to hear more from you than from us. So we're going to take a back seat and let you share, because people get worried, like, am I sharing too much? And I'm like, no. We love your story. We're highlighting your story. We want to hear your story. So you can share as much as you need to share, or feel led to share. So, and as the reality of adoption trauma began to surface, and you were having these realizations, where did you go for information? What did you connect to help you process that and work through that?
Okay. Well, first off, I thought my challenges were to do with business, not adoption. So I didn't go anywhere near the adoption space. And then I did later. So I went to a guy. I stumbled across a guy, like a practical consciousness, practical spirituality kind of a guy, not a woo-woo guy, but this is cutting through to the heart of who we are, and not in some kind of in a British way as well, with a lot of humor. So I went to him because but a few years later, I was struggling, and I went into the adoptee space, and I read a book, which I read Nancy Verrier's Primal Wound book, which I thought, this explains everything. I became a raving fan of Nancy Verrier. I asked my coach to read the book. I asked my sister to read the book. I asked a friend of mine to read the book. I thought this explains everything. And then and then I happened to be having a conversation with somebody outside of the adoption space, more of a consciousness, an American lady from the West Coast. And I realized that what I'd seen in the T.H.R.I.V.E book is, that adoptees don't like rejection, adoptees want to control stuff, and adoptees don't like change. I realized in a split second that nobody likes those things. Nobody likes being adopted. Nobody likes being rejected. Not many people like change, and most people want to control stuff. So I realized that she was actually talking about human tendencies, the human condition, and she was applying what is human and pinning the tail on the wrong donkey. And the donkey was adoption. Just because there's a lot of people in that space that feel like that. A lot of adoptees feel that way. But there's a saying that correlation is not causation. Just because the two things are seen together doesn't mean one causes the other. I also realized that believing that I was wounded was disempowering me. It was making me feel worse. And the light bulb went on, and I just thought, all this stuff that I've been hanging my problems on a peg called adoption, and it's got nothing to do with that. So I spoke to Nancy on the phone about 4 years ago. I'll be forever thankful of that, because I don't know, that my take on the book may be completely different to everybody's, but my message, what I took out of the book and what I think it might, but for me, it really helped me see that this is the human condition we're talking about. This is human consciousness. That's going up and down. And that has been my life has gone from light to semi-dark about business, to a bit darker about the adoption, to brilliant bright, and that's where the hope is. What I see within adult adoptees is a lot of them have spent their whole lives in the dark. So if we show them there's some light, if I say, look at the light, guys, they'll say, well, I can't see it. You are denying my experience, Simon. I was accused of toxic positivity the other day. Interesting. I've never heard of that before. Toxic positivity.
I have never heard of that phrase.
No. So, but if we are in the dark, and we've always been in the dark, we can't see the light. If we've always lived our life in the light, we can't see the dark. It so happens, like, you've seen this from the stuff that you've been through. Yeah. You've seen the light and the dark. And so you know the difference between the two, which means that you don't dismiss the people in the light, and you don't dismiss in the dark, because you can see the whole kind of thing. So our consciousness changes, and that's the higher our consciousness goes, the lighter the more clearly we see stuff. There's a lot of adult adoptees saying, I didn't realize how adoption had hurt me, and they say, well, I've suppressed the feelings. No. Well, not for me. Suppress feelings? We don't suppress things. We just get a bee. Like, I got a real bee in my bonnet. I'm a suggestible guy. I pick up on stuff. I'm a sensitive guy. I pick on stuff. And I was brought up really honestly. We talked about this, honestly adoption. I started off here. I was brought up really honest. So I tend to believe stuff too easily rather than being cynical. So I got a real bee in my bonnet that adoption had trashed me. And adoption never trash. We're all untrashable. Untrashable, I believe.
Yeah.
The human spirit is untrashable.
Yeah. I love that phrase, toxic positivity. I wrote it down because I'm like, that's not a phrase you hear very often in this culture, but I think that's a growth agent right there. That's a change agent. When we can look at things with a positive outlook and change our perspective. I'm like you, Simon. I believe, like, I buy in. My buy-in is really quick. I have a habit of latching onto things. So I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, on the toxic positivity thing, and it isn't a thing, is it? It's just people's egos are such that they won't allow somebody to be having a better life than them. So they'll try and drag us down, or they'll call us, we call it a Pollyanna. It's a phrase I don't know where it comes from. It's from literature. Pollyanna. It's like delusional. But the flip side of toxic positivity to me is, like, as somebody that's worried a lot about business and worried a lot about stuff in his life and still worries about it.
Yeah.
Just so happens I don't take those worries very seriously anymore. I used to worry about worrying. I used to worry about worrying. And then worry about worrying about worrying about worrying.
You sound like us.
Yeah, it's human nature, But I care less about the fact that I worry, less of the time. But the flip side of toxic positivity is worrying going to make the outcome better?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Is worrying about whether we're going to be able to go away on vacation or not because of COVID, is worrying about that, or is getting our hopes up? If we get our hopes up, right, then we're happy now. If we get our hopes up, but oh no, I don't want to get my hopes up in case I can't go on vacation. Well, that just means that you're going to be sad now, right? If we can, who said something? It said I've worried about a lot of things in my life, and many of them haven't happened.
Hey, that's
so
powerful,
true.
right there.
Yeah.
I need a meditation track that says that exactly. And I think there's something else too that I love that you pointed to, the idea or the realization that this is about human nature. And there's a lot about us being human that doesn't like change, that doesn't want separation, that experiences trauma. And I know that we have found in our own family that we have been much more able as parents to identify with our children when they're struggling or when they have experienced trauma, when we're realistic about the things that we have experienced as adults. And whether that experience for our children comes from their adoption or their time in foster care or somebody bullying them at school or something entirely different, a tornado came through our town, something like that. Whatever the experience is, when I know that when Mike and I have looked at ourselves and said, what is it about my life that's been difficult? What have I experienced that's colored the way that I see the world? I tend to respond to my children with more compassion. And so I love that you took the reality of that, that adoption trauma, that initial separation, that anger that you felt, and turn that back around to something else, that it does exist. You did feel that way. And that also it's not the place that you choose to live every day. I think there's something so powerful to realizing that we all experience those really difficult things or those really worrisome things. And then what can we do next? And I love your website. We checked that out, and it says on your website that you have a mission to help adoptees thrive. Can you tell us more about how you came to all of that? Tell us all about that.
Okay. So for the last 8 years, I've been working with kids in schools mainly. So I've been in, a cross between an inspirational speaker and a kids TV presenter on Sesame Street, right? So it's like, it's about helping the kids understand. Well, first off, it's about engaging them in a conversation on their agenda. So what do they want? So that at school, their agenda is set by the school. You've got to pass your exams. You've got to improve your maths and English, all that sort of stuff. Or math, you guys call it math. We say maths with an S on it, right? So it's about engaging them with their agenda, what do you want as a 9-year-old kid? So they want to be a soccer star, or they want to be a nurse, or they want to be an author, or they want to be a physicist, what do you need to make your dreams come true? How do you need to feel to do that? And where do those thoughts come from? Right. So I've been doing that, and then I'm playing games around confident coconuts and positive pomegranates. Right. And so I did all that, and I worked with 1,600 8 to 11-year-old kids, but I couldn't really. The schools haven't got any time for this. Their priorities are different, and they haven't got any money. So trying to make a living out of it was just like a non-starter. So I thought, well, I need to check, and I've tried loads of different ways to do this, and I've tried loads, and I was doing some parenting, so taking what I'd learned with kids and then sharing that with parents, empowering parents in that way, and I'm still doing that. I did a course. I did a course. I did a coaching session with a mum and a dad this morning, but. I heard some secondhand feedback, which was, we don't understand why this guy Simon is doing what he's doing, and I wasn't having the traction that I wanted. And I realized that I was speaking to one of my coaches, and I realized that I needed to change. And I talked to her about a passion project that I started on the side last year, which was a book about my adoption experience. And I thought, that's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. I will go out into the world and I will figure a way to empower adoptive parents and adopted adults. And I came up with this Thrive mnemonic, when I came up with that as a way to encapsulate what this is, what my approach is all about. So that's a long story long. That's not a long story short.
No, it's, the word thrive. We actually have a coaching program for parents called Thrive. So we love the word thrive. And I was looking through some of the information you sent over, that Thrive, just so our audience knows, Thrive stands for transformation, healing, resilience, identity, vision, enjoyment. And I love the word transformation, that the idea, and you write this here, releasing adoption trauma, which you taught, that's your own journey. That's your personal journey. And I think
it's more than that. It's
okay.
more than that.
Yeah.
It's more than that.
Absolutely.
It's more than that. It's, you were talking, we were talking about stuff that is human, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of changing the T on transformation to trauma, actually, because it's more accessible. But what I mean by transformation is, have you heard of it's a long quote, so I sometimes get it wrong, right? So this is by a French guy whose name is Dujardin, and he said, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Have you ever come across that?
I have heard that.
You've heard that?
Okay. I have heard that, yes. Yeah.
And that shifts everything you think about yourself.
Yes. So the transformation is the shift about what you think about yourself is from the purely human, from the human to the spiritual.
Right.
I don't mean religious here.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean the life spirit, the spirit, the ghost in the machine, some people call it. It's the animating force behind life. Now, I'm guessing that you'd be into this sort of stuff, or am I going too woo-woo? I don't know.
No, I love it.
No, you're great. This is great. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We're hanging on. We're listening.
Yeah,
We're right with
cool.
you.
So unfortunately, my dad died 4 years ago. But unfortunately, my father-in-law died 5 years ago. Now, my mum and my sister wanted to go and see my dad. I didn't, because I'd seen my father-in-law a couple of years before that, and his body was there, but his spirit wasn't. His spirit had gone somewhere else. And the essence, so that's why I believe that we're spiritual beings. Yeah. So we have to kind of, life is not about strategies, it's about insights, right? So, and it's not about positive thinking. It's about that insight, that realization that we have in the moment. Some people call it epiphany, insight. Some people get epiphany envy. Have you come across that? You go on a course and somebody gets something better than you do, and then you get epiphany envy. So you can have
epiphany envy.
Sorry?
Oh, you said epiphany envy, and I loved it. And I did, yeah. It made me laugh.
Yeah. I heard it
but
somewhere.
What did you just say? Well, what did you say? You just said something. You were starting to say that, like a different way to say that, Simon. I was curious what you're about to say.
Yeah. Epiphany envy, like an epiphanet. Okay, so I'm not going to share. Yeah. I'm aware in the audience that you might get epiphany envy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that you don't get too much epiphany. My epiphanies. I'm not going to share my epiphanies with you, Mike and Christian. I'm only going to share my epiphanets, so that you don't wish you'd had the epiphanies that I had. But the insight. It's change comes from insight. Change comes from insight. Change comes from within when we see something for ourselves. So it's not about what I say, it's about what you hear. It's not about what I point at, it's about what you see. And when I had that moment about that spirit, so what I'm doing with the story is I use a lot of metaphors. One of my coaches, I'm on a course with him at 4:00, and it's like he's the master of metaphors, right? He's a master of metaphors. He's in the consciousness space. He doesn't do anything about adoption. So metaphors and stories. So my story was, unfortunately, I saw a dead body, and it was. But in that moment, I saw that we aren't our bodies. We're our spirit.
Right.
We're our spirit.
Yeah.
And that's the transformation piece, and that's in the identity piece, right?
Right.
So another way that I talk about identity is when you say your identity, you ask me how my name's spelled and ask my surname stuff, right? Okay. So I've been David Anthony Flower. Okay. For the first 5 weeks of my life, I was David Anthony Flower. And then I was Simon Jonathan Ben. So the truth is always true. So if I've been both of them, if I've had two names, I can't be my name.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
an
insight that I had.
Say it. Say that one more time, because I just want you to emphasize that to our listeners.
Oh, okay. Right. So I've been David Anthony Flower for 5 weeks of my life, and then I've been Simon Jonathan Ben for 54 years plus. Okay. Yeah. So if I have been in inverted commas, putting them in little speech marks in the air, right? If I have been both of those people, I can't actually be either of them. That can't be who I am, because the truth of who we are, the truth of who we are never, ever changes. The truth doesn't change. So if I drop this pen, then it's always going to drop down. It's going to. We're doing this on Zoom for the benefit of the listeners. So if I drop this pen, it's always going to down. That's the truth. The truth of gravity here within the Earth's atmosphere is that pen's always going to down. Truth is always true.
Yeah.
So who we truly are can't be our names, and we can't be our bodies. But these are insights that I've had, and I'm trying to share them with you as clear as I can. And there is a real big reason why I'm trying to share them with you, and I'm trying to share them with your listeners. I'm just going about it a very roundabout way, because if I went straight to the truth, you really would think I was a complete nutter, and I don't want to do that. So we've got to kind of build up to this, and I'm loving this conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So identity transformation is the change, is the jump between the physical and the spiritual. Identity is the change between. It's the same thing. You know, we're not what we do, because what we do changes. We're not our name, because our name changes. Women get married and their name changes. Kids are born without names, and so we can't be our names. We're not what we do. That changes. We're not our behavior. That changes. Sometimes I'm really outgoing. Sometimes I'm more shy. We can't be our thoughts, because our thoughts change all the time. We have 70,000 of those a day. And we can't be our feelings, because 1 minute I'm really cheesed off that I can't go skiing in April that we've got planned. And the next minute I'm not bothered, because I'm just enjoying my life. Right. So we can't be any of those things. Yeah. Who we truly are, that spirit is fundamentally unwoundable. So we've got Nancy Verrier with the primal wound. Nancy Verrier, primal wound. She's using a metaphor. She's saying that trauma is like a cut on our arm that's never going to go away. Right? She's saying that trauma is physical, trauma is human, but we aren't our bodies. And we aren't human beings. We're spiritual beings, have a human experience. And the nature of spirit is it's immaterial. It's immaterial. So something that is immaterial can't be materially damaged.
Wow.
I think that's such a beautiful way to describe what our children are experiencing. So much we're hearing, even in our own home, this struggle of identity. Who am I, and where did I come from, and where did my parents come from, and how did I end up in this house with these parents and these brothers and sisters, and in this school, in this community. And I love the way that you just described that, because it gets to the core of the identity of all of us, but particularly as foster and adoptive parents. That's a conversation that's happening literally all the time in our homes. And as we're recording this, one of our children is coming up on their birthday on Saturday. And so we have started into that week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks prior to the birthday that stir up all of those emotions and connections and thoughts and feelings around identity. And I just, everything that you described is already what my very young child is thinking through. Am I my behavior? Am I my thoughts? Am I what I do? Am I where I live? Am I my name, which has changed for this child multiple times? And of course, I had never heard somebody put it that way. But of course, this child has been this child since forever. They are more than all of those things. It gives me a lot to think about. I appreciate that you said that.
So, and I also want to add to that. if I can, I
Yeah.
think what's so valuable about this, and I agree with you, Simon, this conversation is amazing because this is so positive. I mean, you're an adult adoptee, and you're on mission to help parents like us form a way deeper connection with our children. And I'm just listening to you walk through this Thrive model, and it's so positive. You know, we have been in conversations in the past, and this is one of the reasons why we put a high value. One of our greatest values within what we do is spotlighting the voices of adult adoptees, because we believe that you are one of the greatest resources to help us become better parents. And it's so valuable because oftentimes I think that out of the understandable anger that adoptees have and wrestle with, parents like us are like, well, okay, well, help me understand how I can do this better. What do I need to know? And I love your approach is so positive, and I'm listening to you and I'm like, yes, this is, I need to know that. I need to hear it from this perspective. I need to understand, this approach, if that makes sense. So I love the positivity in it. I think it's really valuable. And the majority of our audience are parents right now. And I hope you guys listening are taking notes on this. We're putting all this in the show notes, so you'll be able to connect with Simon's website and his Thrive model. But there's no question in that. I'm just pointing, I just love the positivity in this.
So I'm close to tears in a good way, guys. Because we're living the dream here, and we're sharing the dream with others. Now, a couple of things pop into my head. First off, Kristen, is what you said about the birthday coming up and stuff like that, and this child has multiple names and all these questions that are coming to him. It's like, so I thought my rabbit hole, we go down rabbit holes in life, like when we're looking for answers. Mm-hmm. My rabbit hole has probably only been about, 400 yards long. And the fact that your son's rabbit hole sounds like it's about 26 miles long to me, just makes me want to cry,
Right.
And like I've had it so easy comparatively. I'm just, so that's and so I just want to say that. And the truth, the other thing about this is that this is positive because it's true. One of Einstein's greatest sayings for me, and stuff and this is one that my coach shares with me, is an Einstein quote, and it's something like, whether we think, the most important question in life is whether we think the universe is for us or against us.
Yeah.
Right? For us or against us. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, the truth, we'll all have in different parts of the day, different years of our life, we're gonna oscillate between those two, answering that questions for and against, right? But the truth of it is that the universe, in my opinion, is that the universe is for us, right? So, mm-hmm. and that's why this stuff is positive, because this is coming from truth, from, people say natural, as in part of our nature, our spiritual nature. So human nature is that life goes up, is our mood that goes up and down. We have trauma, we don't have trauma, we get over it. That's human nature. Spiritual nature is the nature of the universe. Have you ever seen a flower forcing its way through the through the blacktop. You call it blacktop. Tarmac, we call it here, the black stuff that on roads.
Right.
Yeah? So that's nature.
Asphalt.
Yeah. That nature is that human nature is a force for good, right? So there's another
so powerful.
The thing I'd point you towards here. Have you ever come across a guy called Professor David Hawkins? Yes, his seminal work is Power versus Force. Have you come across that, Power versus Force?
The name sounds familiar, but yeah, definitely elaborate, because I don't know if we're familiar with his work.
Okay, so he's got a scale of human consciousness. Okay, from 0 to 1,000, and it's a logarithmic scale. And I don't exactly not sure what that means, but it means it's not a straight line. It means 1,000 is way, way, way off the chart than where it would be if it was a straight line graph, right? So 0 is dead. 20 is shame. There's a lot of shame around. Some adopted and fostered kids and the environments that they've been brought up in. 50 is anger. 180 is pride. So and this guy has calibrated the scale of human consciousness. And the United States Marine Corps, it calibrates at 180, right? But anything below 200 on this scale is detracting from life, as in it withdraws from life, it depletes us. Anything above 200 lifts us up. So at 1,000, as I say, I'm not a religious guy of any denomination, whatever. But at 1,000, you've got Buddha, Krishna, and Jesus Christ is up at 1,000. You know, like unconditional love is about 350, and we spend our this is our mood. This is where consciousness goes up and down. So what happened with me? I had this burst of anger, of feeling anger, which is calibrating at 50, and not good enough, rejected, unloved, worthless, thrown away, trash. You know, all this stuff. We hear a lot about that in the spaces that we three hang out in. Yeah? These are all. This is where people are coming from, that drives their behavior. So it's called Power versus Force, and it's something like the human. It's subtitle is the hidden determinants of human behavior. But that's what's driving behavior. So another Einstein quote is, we can't solve the problem at the same level of thinking that caused it, right? So we have to go upstream of the behavior. You'll know this, upstream of the behavior to what's causing it. And what's causing it is the level of consciousness. And by lifting people up with a message of hope and all the great empowerment books, the stuff that you do, you know, I've just been checking out your videos. I've seen your books. We empower. Now, the thing is that kids coming from that background, those backgrounds where the level of consciousness is low, we need to lift them up. But it's a bit like speaking French, right? Or doing anything, unless kids do what we do, not what we say, for a start off. So we need to live our lives from a higher level of consciousness through education, you know, through empowerment. We need to empower ourselves, because if we don't do that, we've got no chance. You got a snowball's chance in whatever about teaching our kids that. We need to be the change that we want to see in the world, and we need to upskill our consciousness. And there's two really bits of good news. Two really bits of good news. I've forgotten one of them. One is the big one, right? Is that you guys and all the listeners are coming from love. So you've got you've got a secret ninja, and it's so good. Your power, your secret superpower, love, coming from love. That's what gets you through the tough times. But because it's really hard to see the picture when we're in the frame, right? So we don't appreciate where we're coming from, and we kind of negate it. So, that's why we can't take compliments, right? So you're coming from love, and love's going to conquer all, because that's what it does. No mountain high enough, no whatever. You're going to keep going. So that's the really good news, and that's what's going to power. The other good news, whether you'd ever thought about that before, the other really good news that's even better is because your audience, the people that tune into your podcast every week, every one that you do, they're already in the space. They're the ones.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are doing, they're the ones that are curious. They're curious. They've decided, I want to be a better parent. I need to know more. I'm going to listen to the guys that know what they're talking about, and I'm going to use what I learn with them to empower my kids. So there's, the snowball's rolling down the hill. It's gathering pace. And I've seen this, right? Because I've got, like I talked about the contrast between, so I said that my life had gone from light to semi-dark about business, to semi-dark, a bit darker still, probably pitch black in some moments, about adoption, to brilliant bright light, right? So I can see all these differences. I'm lucky to do that. I count myself incredibly lucky to do that. I forget how lucky I am to be able to do that.
Yeah.
The other thing is because I've spent time talking to people who are not adoptive parents, who are not foster parents. I know how much hunger and curiosity that you guys have, so that other parents just don't have, as a rule. People, as a rule. I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm not making any judgment. This is purely my experience. You guys are in the zone already. You're on the way to their Super Bowl of raising happy kids, and you're determined, because you're driven by love, to do it. And in my experience, there are less people in the other space that are like that.
Yeah. I'm thinking through some of the things that we tell parents, because we're passionate about helping parents become the best parent possible. I was just writing this down this morning as we're working on, our 2021, we're refining our mission for our entire company. And we're all about helping parents become the best parent possible for their kids. And a lot of that has to do with understanding where their child has come from, which you just hit up on when you're talking about that place of loss and anger and resentment, and the list goes on that kids go through. But what we tell parents is, number one, you have got to regulate yourself first. That's how we state it. You've got to regulate yourself first. You have got to maintain control of your emotions, but then you need to step back and say, okay, what I'm seeing from my child I'm not going to take it at face value. There's something propelling that behavior, that emotion. So as we say it, like, get behind the veil that you see in front of you and ask bigger questions about why this child reacts this way or behaves this way. They're not a bad child behaving badly. The behavior has an origin, because all human behavior has an origin. And that's precisely what I'm listening, as I'm listening to you, I'm just nodding, because I'm like, that's exactly what parents need to hear. Helps them become a better parent.
So what was your first point? Your first point about regulating the emotions? Is that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah. We tell in our coaching of parents, when we talk about behavior management, we tell parents, before you can manage the behavior of your children, you've got to manage your behavior. You've got to stay regulated as a caregiver. You've got to keep your emotions in check. You have got to, take a step back and change your response, your approach as a caregiver.
So I would say from that, and this is just my opinion, right?
Yeah.
The thing that helps us regulate emotions is the understanding of them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is and yeah, but there's a step behind that. There's a step further than that as well. So my model is to so I'm looking at outcome, goal. I'm looking at what's upstream of goal, which is behavior, which is where most people are going. Right, let's try and change behavior. So whether that's an entrepreneur trying to look for the strategies to drive their business, or 5 ways to make your kid behave. Yeah, 5 ways. Everybody's working at this strategy level, which is the wrong place to be. So we need to go up. We need to go upstream of behavior. We need to go upstream of behavior to feelings. Yeah. Maybe, but all right. So why do we feel the way that we do? And then we're into, we feel the way we do because of our childhood, right? If we're adults, well, my behavior, my feelings change. My past happened a long time ago. So it's nothing to do with our history. It's to do with how we are thinking in the moment. And most people will go to the thinking bit there, and they'll argue a lot with me on the feeling stuff, because they'll say that the outside world causes my feelings, which clearly, as we know, it doesn't. Feelings are an inside job. Have you ever been upset in the sunshine or happy in the rain?
Right.
But we have miserable weather. There's no such thing as miserable weather. Kids don't think the rain is miserable. They go out splashing in their Wellington boots, rubber boots. And
that is so true.
They're having a laugh, right? They haven't bought into the societal conditioning that weather makes us miserable. Oh, yeah. How have you been today? Oh, I've been as good as the weather. What? The weather determines your mood? Get over it. Right. Okay. So most people go to the thoughts bit, and then we get bogged down in the thoughts and all the shrinking stuff, and that's not where the leverage is. The leverage is all in the identity piece, understanding who we are, and that is that. So for me, that's where the leverage is, understanding who we truly are, and that's the spiritual being having a human experience. So the consciousness, every behavior, there's a level at, you talked about the determinant of behavior, and there is only one determinant of behavior. That is that level of consciousness, which is why I was banging on about the level of consciousness.
Right.
So understanding the levels of consciousness and stuff, and then the identity and the identity stuff, that is the key. You can go straight to identity. You can go straight to identity depending on where it was going. And I've got a little I've got a little prop here that you're going to need to explain. You need to take a guess what it is for your listeners. Okay. So what do you think this is?
A gem.
Yeah. So this isn't actually a real diamond, because if it was, it'd be worth about, I don't know, right?
A lot.
It's an inch high.
A lot of money.
For those listening in black and white, no. It's a glass diamond. It's about an inch tall, right? So that's who we are when we're little, and when we get a bit bigger, this is who we are. This is a glass diamond that's about 3 inches tall.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
this is who we truly are. This is the perfection that we truly are. Underneath the manure, Do you like what I'm doing? I'm not using swear words. Underneath
Yeah,
the
that's
manure,
perfect.
underneath the manure that we've been through in our lives, underneath all the manure that we have in our heads is this diamond. But the thing is,
wow.
the thing is, until I heard about that, I couldn't see that. I couldn't see that at all. I thought I was the thoughts in my head.
Yeah.
I thought I was, a piece of junk that had been thrown away, unloved. That's where I was for a short period of time when I hit 40, right? So nobody explained to me that I was a diamond, and nobody pointed it out to me. So when I talk about spiritual, I'm just talking about that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm talking about helping everybody in the world see that how the manure that they've been through in their lives, it hides the diamond, but it don't change the diamond. It just hides it. The manure in their head, it stops them seeing their own perfection.
Right.
That's all it does. But it doesn't change the nature, because the spiritual nature of all of us is that diamond perfection.
Right.
But we can't just tell people that, because there's because they need to see that for themselves. We're talking about earlier on about epiphanies and epiphanettes and insights. Everybody needs the better, the more clearly that parents can see this. They can, faults and all, faults and all. Well, the diamond is a faultless, flawless gem. All the stuff that we've done, and all the stuff with the thoughts and all that sort of stuff, that isn't the diamond. So the clearer that we can see that perfection, our own perfection, not in a big-headed way, because I believe we're all perfect. We're all perfect. And the more clearly we can see that, the better our chance of being able to point our child at that truth too.
Absolutely. I think our parents are going to find that so valuable, that shift in thinking and that seeing that our value has always been there, and that the reality of who we are is it's already there. It's beneath all of this other stuff. And I'm so glad you explained that. I know that our listeners are going to want to be able to find you and connect with your resources. And then I have just 2 quick questions. So can you tell our listeners first, what is your website? How can they connect with you there?
Okay. So my website is Simon Ben with 2 N's, SIM and SIMONBENN.co.uk.
Perfect. Okay. So these are the last 2 questions. Now, we used to ask just your hot seat questions at the end, but our son the other day told us those were lame questions, and he had different questions for us to ask our people that we interview. So here are your 2 questions. The first one is, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
It would be for the 7 billion people in the world to see their own perfection.
I love that. Okay. And if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Can I have like a side order, or does it have to be just one thing?
I think it's just one.
Well, we would take a side order. No. I think like a small side. Small side
my
salad.
son always says, you can't change the rules, Mom. Just answer the question.
Okay, so I'll answer 2 then.
But you're the guest. You're the best. Okay. So you can break the rules.
You can answer
Simon.
2.
Okay, so I'm gonna take the diplomatic way out here.
All right.
I'm gonna give you chances.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
So if it was just one foodstuff, then it would be pizza. and specifically
There you go.
pepperoni pizza. Thin, not deep pan or chunky crust or anything like that. Like a thin and crispy pizza with pepperoni, maybe a few chili flakes and lots of pepper from a pepper mill.
Nice.
And it would be made in the traditional way in a wood-fired oven, so that the edge of the pizza is really doughy and soft. It's slightly crispy, but also slightly doughy, sort of in the middle. So that would be, and it had to be made with the best flour by an Italian guy. So that's the first one.
Wow. So
for my second one, if I'm allowed sides, I would have, first off, I'd have a pint of black. I'm going to have a lot of sides. Okay. I'm going to have a pint of water first. That's so I can slake my thirst, because otherwise I drink my beer too fast. Okay. So, so a pint of water.
Yeah.
I sometimes do this. So a pint of water, then I have a pint of black sheep beer, it's a bit like an IPA.
Yeah.
With a thick, creamy head on it, like you get on Guinness. Okay. And it's made about 20 miles away from here. So I'm going to have, that's going to be on my placemat. Then I'm going to have some, I'm going to have a meat pie. Meat pie. So like a steak pie, steak and ale pie. Pie. Okay. Made with the black sheep ale in it. Okay. Then I'm going to have Jenga chips, like chunky, not like French fries, but like the chunky chips. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Triple fried, triple dipped, because they go really crunchy.
Yeah. Holy cow.
I'm going to have some leeks, some carrots and peas.
Oh my gosh.
And then
you're killing me, because you're going to have another what?
I'm going to have another pint of beer after that.
Oh my gosh. It's like 40 minutes. It's 40 minutes till lunchtime here, and you're killing us right now, because all I want is pizza and beer now. And I got to get through the rest of the workday.
I know. And we're nowhere near any place we can get pizza and beer right at the moment.
Oh, well, my signature dish, okay, I'm not much of a chef, is it is a bit like Walmart. We have Asda. Walmart own Asda here in the UK. Asda is a supermarket chain owned by Walmart, right?
Okay.
So we can get pretty good pizza, frozen pizza, pepperoni pizza from Asda or from other supermarkets. And we can get Stella Artois, like a Belgian,
I'm a big Stella fan.
Beer.
Yeah,
a big Stella fan. It's very expensive when I've been in the States, but here it's really cheap. So that's what I will be having tonight. I'll be having some Stella, but Stella and beer, because I will only drink beer in a pub, really, because it needs to have that thick head on it. The white head like they have on Guinness. I'm very fussy.
It's like a draft, like draft on draft.
A draft beer. Yeah. But at home you can't get that head, so I have to have a normal bottle of Stella.
Yeah. Oh,
I hope your son.
That's perfect.
I hope your son will appreciate.
You cheated, but he'll be happy to hear it.
Good. If you are gonna cheat, that is the way you cheat, right there.
Exactly. If you're gonna change the rules of the game, that's the way to do it. Your one meal sounds perfect.
There are no rules.
I love it.
Right. Oh my goodness. Well, it was so nice to talk with you. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Can I come back again? I've had a lovely
Oh my
time.
goodness, yes. We have so much more to talk about.
Well, thanks again for checking out the Honestly Adoption podcast. We hope you guys have gained a lot of wisdom, insight, and perspective that can help you become the best parent possible. That is what it's all about. You guys, we are just a few clicks away at honestlyadoption.com, honestlyadoption.com/podcast, and honestlyadoption.com/support. If you find yourself in need of connection, which we all need, definitely visit our page and reach out to us. Our team is standing by, ready to serve you in any way we can. We hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time on the Honestly Adoption Podcast.